One. We are live. Hello and welcome to PropTechBuzz, a business podcast on global PropTech, where we talk to PropTech founders and CEOs from all around the globe and learn from them how they build and manage successful PropTech companies. Today, I have an exciting guest with me. He is Ivan Nokhrin. Ivan is the co-founder and CEO of BuiltAPI. BuiltAPI is a low-code data integration company which develops a technology platform that helps real estate businesses use data to make informed decisions and drive sustainable performance and value growth. So this is, I just read out a description picked from their LinkedIn. Ivan would be able to break it down in details so that we understand what Built API is into. Ivan has developed and successfully piloted with large European customers. He grew the operational business from zero to a team of 12 professionals, established clients in Germany and Switzerland, onboarded 20 plus tech vendors, and created 100 plus connectors for professional real estate software. He also run a boutique digital advisory firm, Wired Heart, and the track record of the company includes real estate digitalization projects for some large European asset managers with 60 billion plus assets under management. He has had a massively successful career, 20-year long career in real estate investment and finance sector. It includes launching a 1.5 billion euros direct real estate investment fund, restructuring a 300 million plus worth of NLPs in real estate and industrial sectors. He has managed a commercial portfolio of 17 retail assets, founding and growing a PropTech startup from 0 to 16 million valuation. So that's a lot of credibility here and a lot of expertise here with Ivan. So I'm very, very excited to talk to him. But before we welcome him, before we begin with him, a request to all my listeners out here. So we have reached close to 3K followers on YouTube and on Spotify. So thank you for all the support. But if you're listening to us and if you're a repeat listener, and I know there are so many listeners who repeatedly listen, our stats tell us, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow button on Spotify and leave a review, because when you do that, it gives us ability to reach out to a wider audience. As you know, we struggle. PropTech is still a niche sector, and we struggle to reach out to a broader audience. So with little help, if you're listening to this, please hit that like and subscribe button. With that, let's welcome Ivan. Ivan, welcome to PropTechBuzz. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me, Ravi. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. Doing fine, I guess, all things considered.
The privilege is mine, Ivan. And I just bumped onto you, and what caught my fancy was the name Built API. I finally realized this is somebody who is standing out from in the ecosystem. I've not seen anybody. Maybe they're doing, but maybe smart name for you, right? You have the API right in the name of your company. I know for sure there is a company back in India where I belong from. They are also building an API for the commercial real estate, but they were not as smart. The API does not reflect in their name. So good job there. But before we get into the Built API stuff, I narrated your experience, but maybe you could help us weave that thread on how your experience overall has been, your career trajectory has been, and your transition story to building Built API.
Absolutely. It'll be my pleasure. I've been in the real estate sector for over 20 years now. And the first half of my career, I spent, like you already mentioned, working for larger companies as analyst, as acquisitions manager, as fund manager, asset manager. So I've seen different sides, different aspects of this really complex world of real estate investment and asset management. And during the course of time of my work career, I became really upset with the way that we treated information, treated data, because with all the fancy new equipment that we had, including like first digital cameras that we took on our property tours with us back in the beginning of 2000s, and all the way to like mid 2000s when we had professional software already available, we still were kind of relying on spreadsheets, on pen and paper, and we did a lot of things just for basically one-time use. And what really upset me is the way that the real estate industry as a massive container for capital, right? And today, it's already a beat up reference, but there's close to 300 trillion US dollars equivalent of value that is stored in real estate across the globe. It's quite a huge number. Yeah, it's quite a value. And the fact that still today, when portfolio managers make a deal, make a transaction, they pay consultants and advisors who come and inspect the building and look through documents, make financial forecasts, and they produce a snapshot that is usually just kept in a deal room and then forgotten. And this is really a shame, and that's what drove me to launch my first business in the tech space a decade ago, a company that was focused on building valuation software for commercial real estate. And we were quite successful with that startup. We launched it in several countries across Europe, onboarding some large customers from the commercial real estate space, direct investors, advisors, and consultants among our customers. And everywhere we went to deliver and deploy our SaaS software, we had to face the same challenge of data integration, because whenever you offer a solution that processes data in a smart way, you have to first get that data from somewhere. And usually companies do have the data in machine readable formats stored this way or another, either in systems of record or even in Excel sheets. And so we had to build manual connectivity to a lot of different data sources. And so after a while, I realized that pretty much every software vendor faces the same issue. It's really the integration is a type of work that nobody really likes to do, because it's a side business for software vendors, who would like to just charge a subscription fee and develop their features, and make their products better. And it's an overhead for the real estate companies, because that's not their business. Most of the companies outsource IT services, so they don't have enough expertise in-house to do that kind of work. And systems integrators are usually focused on integrating large-scale solutions like SAPs and Salesforce, all these big names. And therefore, there was a niche, evident niche for a product that would serve the real estate companies who have adapted what I call siloed innovation in the past years, but who have not transformed that siloed innovation into, let's say, a shared reality where they would have a data fabric that would help them to build expertise, not lose data, but enable decision making in a real, shared reality with this available data. And that's how BuiltAPI was born. API, as you correctly put it, is basically, it stands for Application Programming Interface for those who hear it the first time. And it's basically the way that software communicates to other software, in the same way as user interfaces, the way that a user communicates to a machine. If a machine communicates to another machine, that's where APIs are used. And there are different types of APIs. What we usually mean in our space by API is REST API, where you send and receive certain data sets over a trusted channel. That's in simple words. That's how we came to be, and that's what we are focused on.
Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. However, it would be helpful to understand with the help of certain use cases. Okay, so data is broad, right? There is a lot of data that is still not captured. Okay, and there is a lot of potential, but it is still lying without being captured. So help us understand the examples of what kind of data are we talking about, and where is the massive potential, where you see maybe from your example of some of the use cases.
Yeah, it's a very valid question because we are building a technology platform, and as any platform, it's a use case driven business, right? So our usual story is that we can do almost anything, but anything is nothing. So we have to focus on something um, uh, that is a particular use case that solves a certain pain. And we have narrowed down our classes of, I mean, we have identified over 60 use cases. Yeah, in the beginning stage when we were doing our research, we did a classification of different pain points that our industry is struggling with, all the way through the so-called layers of management, right? From investment management, so capital management on the top, where you make investment decisions, where to allocate your funds, how to allocate it across different sectors, segments, and geographic locations, um, um, how you want to add value to this capital, and so on. Then to the asset management layer, where you make decisions about how to position your property or your portfolio, how you want it to be. How you want it to be appealing to the tenants, and so on. You want to make these decisions about sort of the image and the quality mark of your portfolio. Then lower to the level of property management, where it's more operational, how you collect rent, how you service your building to maintain a certain quality level. Yeah, so we are dealing with like revenues and OPEX structure and net operating income structures, all the way down to facility management, where you actually dealing with service level stuff like servicing buildings, yeah, from so-called soft facility management, yeah, like cleaning, catering, all the services that you have inside buildings, to hard FM, which is usually servicing the HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems, elevators, entrance systems, keys, everything relating to the hardwares installed inside the buildings. And so out of these layers, we isolated, like I said, over 60 use cases that could be brought to the table. And we try to identify the stakeholders of these use cases who could benefit from automating the data flow or the connectivity, interoperability of services, yeah, for each of the use cases. And we currently are focused on use cases around the topics of ESG, because we understand that it's on top of the agenda in most companies today, and the topics of commercial data aggregation. And regarding, so I'll start with the latter. The commercial data aggregation, what we mean by that is the following. Usually you have different systems of record. You have your financial information sitting in your accounting system. You have your rent rolls, tenancy schedules, commercial terms for your rental agreements stored in your property management system. Then you have your OPEX budget stored in another system, and so on and so forth. And you have a sort of a disparate sources of information that you need to combine together to get a holistic view over your portfolio and understand what is making what is impacting the performance of your portfolio, right? So you want to have accurate data, reliable data, and you want to have the data available on demand. And it is still not the case in our industry. And it's a shame that we have to still talk about interoperability when other companies are sending electric vehicles to space, right? But unfortunately, this is still the reality in the real estate. And so when we are talking about aggregating commercial info, we are talking about creating what I usually refer to as digital asset passports. It's basically a virtual data model that is schema agnostic. We don't care about standards at this stage. Yeah, we don't want to impose any standard on the users. We don't want to say that here is our data model, you must comply, you must map all your data sources to this model. So we are very flexible. We allow companies to define their own data model, how they are comfortable in doing their business, how they want to reflect their indexations and their lease agreements, and how they want to use their chart of accounts and so on. And we allow companies to define, let's say, the main KPIs of their portfolio performance that they track, and create the relationships to the data sources and understand how these KPIs are moved by a certain change in the indicators that are stored in the systems. And so eventually what we care about is the identity of a certain asset or identity of assets inside the portfolio, and the whole tree of data sets that sort of grows out of that identity. So we start with obvious things like address, geolocation, and some basic parameters: the size, area size, class, category, meaning whether it's office or retail or residential or hotel or logistics. And then we fill up the data by connecting additional systems. So eventually you have a single point of access to all of the information that is stored inside professional business software. And we don't disrupt the current IT landscape, right? We let the users still operate within the usual way, like how they are used to work with the software that they work with, but we allow the business users, the decision makers, to see the holistic view and to be able to transform this data into whatever shape of reports they want. If they want to create online accounts for their investors to log in and see almost near real-time performance of buildings and so on and so forth. That's what we mean by aggregation. And we really have achieved the level of flexibility that allows us to promise companies really quick results and really agile approach, right? So we can set up the system to be up and running within 1 week, and we can add the complexity, add the connectors as we go on. The second use case that I mentioned is ESG reporting. Today, it's still a big question, like how to streamline all this data. We are all waiting for taxonomies to arrive on national levels, on European level, to help us streamline the data sets that go into the processing, in order for us to understand all the aspects of ESG. What most companies started with is energy data. So it's basically consumption of energy, heat and electricity. And today we have a number of solutions that operate in this space as professional solutions that position themselves as ESG systems. And there's a number of good solutions out there, but they are not very cheap, and they are not really affordable to all sizes of companies, right? So middle-sized companies, smaller companies, they struggle with setting up their ESG reporting in the right way. So what we are proposing is to really help companies set up templated ESG reporting, and set up really basic data collection paradigm or data collection process that would not hurt their budgets too much, but allow them to be to keep in touch, to keep up with bigger companies that can afford more complex and more expensive systems. So these are probably the two main use cases that are let's say most in demand. But like I said, we are also capable of connecting IoT devices, so we can go to the level of facility management, like all the way down to operating on the building administration level.
Excellent. You just I don't have to ask any questions because you completely covered the entire gamut, all the use cases that you have offered. My question to you is: do you provide local building level data, or it's a mix of local data and then overall data across, say, a country? Like, how do you capture information about all this data? Is it a mix of public data and proprietary data? Help us your strategy for sourcing all these data that you're talking about.
That's a very valid question, and I think it's a very interesting topic to discuss because what we work with is the data that companies who invest in real estate own, yeah, that rightfully own. In fact, we position ourselves as a tool for companies who own assets or who invest in assets recapture the governance over that data, because what we come across most often is that companies are not happy with the software vendors taking over the control of where the data is sitting, how it's governed, where it ends up, and so on. And our key goal is to provide a secure and a safe way for companies to harness information that they rightfully own and make that data portable, meaning that they can detach this information from their systems of record if they sell their portfolio, and then sell this data set, including the historic information about the properties, over to the next buyer. That's the kind of the ultimate value of the data sets that we are helping our clients create. And when it comes to the market data, basically the question in commercial real estate is always about how reliable is the source of the data, because we had a certain attempt to build sort of market level data hub for our clients to use, and we wanted to have let's say comparable rental rates, yield levels, cap rates, in other words, or vacancy rates, stuff that you usually find in commercial real estate consultants reports. But how reliable are those figures? That's a big question mark, because usually the coverage is very little. Even MSCI, who is the kind of the key data provider for portfolio managers out there, is only covering 20%, right, of the markets where they are present. So they are covered a tiny bit of the whole market, and that's why we, after a certain number of experiments, we decided not to pursue this idea that we would aggregate all the publicly available information, try to clean it and make it available, because I think that's a prerogative of companies who are targeting residential market or more B2C sector, because there you have more more vivid and more live information stream. You have your you have your listings, your classifieds, and you have daily update of the information. If it's a seller's market, usually let's say the exposed price for a flat, for example, or a house, is usually not far from the deal price if it's a seller's market, and you can rely on this data. In commercial real estate, usually the rental rates and information about commercial terms of rent is a heavily guarded secret, because that's basically the asset. That's what the asset is eventually. And so companies are not willing to share this information, sometimes easily, sometimes at all. And therefore, what we want to come to, like down the road, is the ability to obfuscate this information, to share it without revealing proprietary data. We want to enable a certain level of access to this information where the request would be encrypted and the response would be encrypted, but we could allow an outside algorithm to come into our database sort of do its calculation, and come back with a certain result without revealing the actual substance of the data. There are technologies today that allow to do that already now, and we want to drive the industry to that edge where this kind of information exchange will be possible. But today we are primarily focused on gathering the data that is proprietary, and we do it for the rightful owners of the data. And our goal is to basically, in business terms, our goal is to get rid of data rooms. I think data rooms and deal rooms should be a thing of the past. You don't need a data room if you have a constant flow of good, reliable data, and you can simply rely on this information to draw your conclusions about the value of the property when you do a transaction. And eventually we want to facilitate also making the transactions, and have enable fractional ownership of real estate through tokenization and so on. I mean, all these topics are very relevant when you have good, reliable information. So that's how we think about it. I would say that we are focused on creating like a shared, let's say a shared data fabric, if you will, right? To make this data fundamentally interoperable.
You mentioned that you want to drive the industry towards a certain level of access across the spectrum. So I know that there are some players. I come from residential real estate, and my expertise was there in my past companies. So the way it would work is they would be incentivized to share more and more transaction data. Okay, so that eventually what happens is the valuation software would get better. So it's actually to their benefit that they share it to these vendors. Otherwise, what happens is if you keep it as a closed guarded secret, you mentioned about comparables, right? So it's important that more and more people share the data, so that the overall accuracy of data and valuation would go up. So do you see a certain resistance for the commercial real estate to still keep it a secret, or to share it so that overall the industry benefits?
You are exactly right that there is this level of let's say acceptance in the residential sector that the more data you share, the more involved you are in this sort of data exchange. And if you don't let your data out, then you are missed out from the marketplace.
Right.
In commercial real estate, it's very different still. Companies hold on to that information because that's how you make money. You have to understand that this is basically by fishing in the muddy waters, so to speak. You make money by maybe not making information very open, and that actually is creating, like, down the road, in the long term, it creates losses, and that's the very sad fact of our industry. In the short to medium term, it can create benefits or profits if you know more than your neighbor, but in the long run, it actually decreases the overall value. And look at what's happening now with office sector, for example. If you think about a small, relatively small marketplace like Helsinki, for instance, right? It has, in the office sector alone, it has 1 million square meters vacancy at the moment. In the US, the situation is even worse. Some geographic locations, some cities have vacancy rates that go up to 20, 30, and in some cases 50%, right? And if you cannot, like the amount of underutilized commercial space is increasing. And the idea that you can hold on to your commercial information, and just keep a status quo is actually hurting the overall business in the long run. And I think the companies are starting to understand this, but there is no, it's kind of the process of how to, there is no alternative route just yet, right? So there is no way to quickly operationally turn your property around to fit it with a different purpose, right? like repurpose it for a different use. There are some emerging ways to do that, but it's not so quick because real estate is a slow-moving industry, and yeah, it's there are different so-called pace layers, to reference Stephen Brandt, but it's moving slowly, yeah. And sometimes architectural design or some internal spacing, or maybe the like a single entrance that has certain servitudes or something over it, cannot just let you use this underutilized space, and so therefore there are clear and rational arguments that speak against companies just sharing this information freely. On the other hand, I think we are seeing more readiness from market participants to open this data, at least to the transaction parties, right? So we are seeing more and more initiatives, some private ones, some more consortium-driven ones, where companies get together and try to discuss a certain standard or a certain data model that would serve as a standardized token that they could exchange in a transaction. Yeah, and the buyer could learn about the property not by opening Excel files and reading through a bunch of lease agreements, but by analyzing a certain data set with a machine algorithm. And there are certain emerging technologies that are speaking in favor of this. And I think the technology of blockchain, even though it's a little bit outside of the focus right now with AI craze, I think it's been a little bit forgotten. But I think, Ravi, I think you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I muted myself. I said
There you go.
blockchain was a craze last 2 years, and this year it is all AI. So you are right.
Yeah. And but I think blockchain means a lot for real estate, because if you can have a ledger that is trusted by everybody, and if you have this trust element built into the whole infrastructure, yeah, the logic how the infrastructure operates, you can build quite good paradigms for better, faster, more fractional transactions. And I think that eventually all these factors should speak in favor of companies for sharing information, for having information more open and more approachable. But I think we must put data security, data safety first, yeah, and allow companies to decide and to have the confidence that if they are allowing data sharing, they have full control over who gets hold of their data. I think that's a very sensitive question, and we must be very conscious about this. But eventually, to answer your question directly, I think there is a certain movement towards more open data sharing, but it's beginning stage.
Got it. So let's understand your value to these companies, right? So your target customers. So there is status quo, and then life before built API, life after built API, right? So what is the value that you're adding? Is it the operating cost? Is it a more accurate data? Is it on the bottom line somehow? So what is the value proposition? How does your sales team sell your solutions? Promising what do you promise to your customers?
Well, in short, we usually say that we promise return on innovation, because what we try to transform, as I said earlier, is siloed innovation, because companies are trying on new software tools, new digital solutions in their building administration and management, and they have to demonstrate every time they make a procurement decision to buy a certain software or to subscribe to a certain technology. They need to defend it, in terms of the budget they want to spend, and they want to defend it to formulate how this investment will return in terms of profit or in terms of increased revenue or smaller opex. And individual companies, they have their own let's say offering related to, let's say, optimized workflow, or higher transparency and so on. And what we want to bring to the table is the ability for companies to aggregate all of the data that they have in a machine readable format available through these applications and software tools, and build kind of a store of value for the data, so that when there comes time again to sell the property, they can sell this digital asset passport along with the property and say, we charge a certain amount of money for the data itself. And since it's more transparent, you can save on your due diligence process, you can save on your different special tricks like clawback clauses, and some holdback amounts that you hold back in case some of the things that were not seen during the due diligence process become apparent at a later stage, and so on and so forth. And you can save a lot of money by just omitting all these traditional risk management tricks, and you can sell the data itself. So the value that we bring is basically in having or let's say achieving a calculatable, measurable return on innovation, return on the money that you spent building your IT ecosystem. And we do that by one way how we offer it is through consultancy. We help companies understand how much money they really spend, because usually the money that you spend on operating a software is usually the money you spend on people who operate the software. This is the usual case. So the subscription fee alone is a fraction of the cost. There's also cloud cost and then people cost that is involved in the total cost of ownership for a software. And another way that we do it is through offering a per asset pricing model. It's a very pioneer thing in our marketplace, but I'm convinced that it is going to be in the future adapted by more and more players, because I think as software vendors, we all in the PropTech space have to be more adaptive to medium and smaller size companies, because usually companies like us and PropTech startups, they try to chase bigger names in the industry, and try to get bigger tickets, higher LTV and ARR figures from less number of customers. But I think the scalability is actually what's missing from our business. And to achieve that scalability, we have to look at the narrower piece of value that we bring to the table and then charge that value on a per asset basis. And in this way, if you think about a stack of technologies that is needed to manage one building, right? So you need a facility management, you need a building administration system, you need a facility management system, property management system, asset management system. If you stack it all together, you can say what fraction of value each system brings and what fraction of the total cost of ownership each system should receive. And then you would have a price per building, charged by every company in this technology stack. And eventually we can help sort of distribute that cost among the players, because as a middle layer, what we bring to the table is the marketplace where our clients, real estate companies, can select the technologies that they want to use in their business. And we offer the opportunity for the software vendors to be present on our platform so that they can expose their value and promote their solution to the end customers. And being a marketplace in that sense, we are in the perfect position to really sort of administer that per asset pricing model. So this is how we do it, and this is, I believe, the ultimate value that we bring is increasing performance of the assets under management.
So you mentioned per asset pricing model is not common today. Is that how it is? If not, what is the default business model, pricing model that are offered by vendors?
Pricing is really a big pain in our industry because you can like usually still to this day companies who offer a SaaS model, they charge by user, and
Hmm.
it's very rarely representative of the actual um, um, kind of kind of the actual reality, because in our industry, um, it's really not sort of direct. It's not a direct relation of the number of people who work in a company. Um, eh, the number of people who work in the company is not in direct relation to the number of assets under management. And sometimes you can see a company with maybe 10 or 20 people on board who manage a very large portfolio of assets because they outsource everything, right? But they are in charge of making the decisions, the budget decisions, and procurement decisions. And so if you charge, let's say you're running an asset management software, yeah, that is used to report out of your portfolio, to report your performance figures, and your choice is to charge by user. And so you would have like what, 3 or 4 users or 10 users, right? And so the price that you need to charge per user in order to make it feasible is ridiculously high. Yeah, then you say, oh, we charge, I don't know, 5,000 euros per user per month. That's a lot by any standard. And then so eventually companies, they are trying to, at least in my experience, from the companies that we work with as vendors, the average price would be from maybe 15 to 50,000 in euro terms per annum. Yeah, that's what you charge. And the logic is usually either per user, yeah, or per company. They just say, okay, that's the price, like 50,000 euros per year is what you pay, regardless of the number of users. So there's very little agility in pricing today. And I think it's driven on the one hand by expectation from the startups that they are creating a scalable solutions, and they usually multiply that figure by 100 or by 1,000, and they say, okay, the market is like 10,000 companies, so we can scale it. But scaling is a killer in our space, again, because I think anybody who tried to sell software to real estate companies knows that a sales cycle is not shorter than 6 months. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's 36 months, not 6. And so in order for you to survive, you need to either secure your runway with external funding, yeah, and then the VC comes and is on your back to return the investment, to grow fast. And it's really a difficult thing. That's why I'm thinking that this per asset pricing model should become common, because it will help companies focus on the specific value that they bring, and to charge a specific accountable, like be accountable for the value that they bring, right? So they could say, okay, you spent $10 per month on our software to manage your building, but that brought you this additional 1,000 euro for this building that you charge on sale, or something like that, right? And then it's very direct value building, and you can justify the procurement cost. For asset management companies, for instance, if we take asset management as an example, it means that they can justify putting that cost, that software cost, on the property level, right? So they don't take it out of their management fee, but they put it on the property level, so they charge it from the total cost of operation, right? So because that should also help companies to procure more professional software, because that's usually why the companies are hesitant to buy expensive software, because usually that means that they get less money themselves, right? They manage other people's money, they invested into real estate. They want this cost to be attached to the real estate that they manage. And we basically, by introducing this per asset pricing model, we allow this value to be built on asset level, and to attribute that value to the asset, so that you can return the money that you invested into software procurement.
No, very good. I think that was a good justification. Um, just curious to know what are the buying behavior and purchasing budget of these customers who are asset managers or portfolio managers. Like, do they have an annual budget wherein they go to conferences to see, okay, where do we invest our money on? Like, are they actively looking out for investing in good technologies, or it's mostly passive? That means they are looking for inbound sales to happen on something interesting. Could you help us understand their buying behavior?
I think it's a it's a very interesting question. It would be interesting to conduct a proper research on this. I can only judge from my experience, and my experience says that it really depends on the size of the company and the culture inside the company and the mindset of the leaders of the company. I think that it's still very much people's business, real estate. And if you think about it, usually this behavior is transmitted from the top guys who are sitting on the board, down to how the company behaves in terms of how they build value for their customers. And if you think about like how real estate business is creating value for the capital that is invested through them, is virtually uh, uh, two ways, right? There's only basically two ways. You can either be lucky and have a speculative profit, right? So you buy cheap, sell in a more expensive, right? So you have to be in the right time and the right place, buy an undervalued property. So you have to sort of know the market, right? That's one way to make money. Another way, the second way, is to make money through active management, right? So you buy property, or brownfield or greenfield if you're a developer, or you're buying an existing property, and you shuffle your tenants, you create a new image for the property, you lift it up in terms of the quality, and then you sell it at a higher value because you actively added some value to how the property operates. And so basically there are only two ways. And I think when companies are looking for technology, if you're thinking about their buying behavior, they are usually trying to facilitate their usual way how they make money. So if it's a speculative approach, if companies want to buy cheap, sell expensive, right? They want a technology that helps them discover off market opportunities, have market analysis done in a smarter way. So they want technologies that maybe do some geolocation based analytics, do prediction models, and they can discover some off-market opportunities so they can buy cheaper. If a company is in the business of active value add asset management, then they look for technologies that really help them transition the buildings after they bought them, into the stage where they want them to be with their value add strategy. And again, what I'm trying to promote with our tool is that you can get a technology value add, like a technology upside, by introducing technologies during your active value add stage. But I believe that this is what kind of defines the purchasing behavior on the ground level. But then if you come to a particular typical case, how companies make decision about buying a software, I have rarely come across a company who would have a sound IT strategy that would say, okay, we have a 10-year strategy. First, we have a strategy to build nice infrastructure, like IT architecture, where we would have microservice based architecture, so that we could plug in new services easily. We'll have this they rarely think as software companies. That's what I would say.
But
And
but they make but they attend to these PropTech conferences actively.
yeah,
Okay, so are they
yes.
being forced to come there, like, or are they actually actively looking out for really disruptive solutions so that they could help grow their business?
I think what drives big real estate companies into these tech fairs is two things. One thing is curiosity, and that's sort of the positive thing. Yeah, they want to know how they can add value to the business, and if they have any opportunity to invest through some venture arms or venture funds in which they also invest, right? So they want to make money by spotting good, prominent technology early. Or the second thing that drives them into these tech fairs is fear, because they fear to
FOMO.
be out of business, right? If somebody
FOMO.
comes, yeah, FOMO, yeah, exactly, fear of missing out, and so mm, I don't think that. I don't think that there's it's really a sporadic behavior. Yeah, I think there is a certain movement, and what we have seen in the past, well, 5 years at least, is a tendency in these real estate companies, especially the big ones, to create their own in-house solutions, to focus on the right skill set of people who work in-house, to really create their own internal solutions. And in fact, that's what we are trying to optimize with BuiltAPI, particularly because our goal is to support these what I call corporate innovation champions. So people who need and who have a task to create their own internal software solutions. And our objective is with our toolset eventually to educate these business users, to help them replace their already existing excellent Excel skills or spreadsheet skills with data orchestration skills. I'm convinced that nobody from outside, no consultant can help companies build better digital applications that the companies themselves can do, right? And we want to bring them a tool set so they can do it easily. Um, and But regarding budgets, you also asked like if they have special like budgets or some kind of
Exactly.
initially.
Annual budget. So that makes it
uh,
easy for startups to know that, yes, there is some budget. Maybe
yeah,
I will
usually.
get,
Yeah.
get
usually
lucky.
usually again, like in my experience, if you're coming with a solution that can fit into, let's say, a marketing budget, yeah, if you're coming with a solution that can help you build like if you think about commercial real estate, if it's a solution that helps you for example create um, expose more automatically, or if you're a development company, if it's a software that helps you analyze potential layout of your building that you're going to construct in a certain area, so you can save on yeah, some initial research, then it can be like, if it's an existing budget, a part of it, a part of which can be allocated to a computer aided technology that can help optimize that process for which this budget is allocated already, then you're in good shape. Then you can actually onboard that customer pretty easily. But if it's something that companies envision as a, as a long run, as something that would contribute to the whole industry in the longer term, then usually you need to find an internal sponsor, a person who will be excited about the opportunity and who will do this internal selling. And then it's usually the story when people will say that, okay, we'll need to include that in the next year's budget, and so we'll have to come up with some justification and so on and so forth. That's kind of the more usual stuff.
Got it.
And Yeah, one more thing to add, maybe ESG is an exception, because it's been kind of a very hot and very noticeable topic. Yeah, and especially during the COVID time, it was kind of on top of the list. And that was a little bit easier if you had your magic words ESG and AI together on the same presentation. Yeah, you had more chance to get into the existing budgets.
Okay, got it. Nice. So I just wanted to understand about your competition. So are there players in commercial real estate who are offering similar value proposition that you are offering? Is it how crowded it is, and how is the space?
Yeah, very good question. I would say that we are coming from both sides. The integration side, and that's a very crowded space since like 5-7 years back, when low code integration platforms started popping up, API management platforms started popping up. So uh, in that sense, we are somewhat competing with these platforms, and even with big players like Apigee, that is a part of Google today, with AWS and Microsoft Azure. On the other hand, smaller companies who offer API administration and management solutions. But when it comes to real estate as our domain specific area, we are probably competing more with the so-called real estate platforms that are trying to position themselves as a all-in-one solution, yeah, for all things real estate. If you think about some of the bigger names that have been announced in the past few years, I could name Building Minds as an initiative by Schindler, the elevator manufacturer, and Microsoft, who made this software that is designed to be the sort of all-in-one solution to aggregate all the information there is to know about your real estate portfolio and have it available. And there are some other startups who are sort of less corporate, so to speak, who are trying to become these all-in-one solutions for real estate, and they are competing with us for the attention of the customers when they are saying that we are helping you build and sort of tie your IT ecosystem together so that it all exchanges data and you have your data available at your fingertips. But my conviction is that those guys should actually turn our partners and competitors. So it's all about competition versus collaboration mindset, right? And I think that some of these type of competitors of ours are currently still focused at kind of um, looking at market share, so to speak. Yeah, looking at the piece of the pie, and I'm trying to usually promote a bigger pie, not a bigger piece of the pie, so that we rather work jointly towards customer development, towards this sort of joint cooperation. But definitely there are some initiatives in the data management space that are emerging, yeah, alongside with our tool set. But we're trying to be a little bit less, let's say, mm, less specific about a certain kind of standard or a certain well, the main differentiator for us is probably the data model, right? So we do not offer any common data model, and most of our competitors, they say that we offer the common data model, so you can map all your existing solutions to our data model, and then you can exchange information. We don't do that. We say define your own data model. You can continue kind of bringing your competitive advantage. We are saying to our commercial real estate customers, you can bring your advantage and expose it in the machine kind of the machine readable way, right? So you don't have to say goodbye to your best practices if the software tells you that you have to have a certain column arrangement for your rent roll. Yeah.
Got it. So since this is a business podcast, our listeners are often interested to understand growth strategies. Okay. So what has worked? What strategies have worked for you? First of all, maybe you could give us a sense of the size of your business. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then what strategies have worked for you for growth, for acquisition of customers and stuff like that? Is it through partnerships, promotions, and stuff like that?
Yeah, very good question. We are still a very small business, relatively. We are just starting to grow, and we've seen some accelerated growth during the last year. We've seen a little bit of a downturn in business activity, as I think most of us have experienced from the beginning of this year. Um, and we are looking for hoping for a certain recovery towards the end of the year. Currently, we have built quite a large number of data connectors, close to a couple hundred to date. We have on our platform, in terms of real estate, size of real estate portfolios, there are close to 4,000 assets that are managed on data hubs that are powered by BuiltAPI today. Total worth of close to 100 billion in euro terms. Our business is still relatively, like I said, relatively small as a company. We have 12 people in my team, but we are looking to onboard new people by the end of the year as we grow with new customers. So we've seen it's still, maybe I must say that our company is really bootstrapped. We have not yet taken any venture capitalists on board or any external investors on board. So we are really trying to live off of the money that we make, which makes it an interesting journey. And to answer the second half of your question, usually the way we acquire customers is coming through horizontal collaboration with technology vendors. So it's usually partnership-driven sales. And of course, as any startup, probably it's really founder-driven sales. So it's me and my co-founder usually leading the way in negotiations, contacting companies. We usually find good leads through PropTech and real estate conferences and fairs like Exporeal, not MIPIM so much, but more of like Cretech. Next month, I'm going to PropTech Vienna, for example. So these kind of events are really the source of new leads for us. But I would say the main thing that worked is the horizontal collaboration with technology vendors, because we understand their pain, they understand the value that we bring to the table, and they can communicate this value to the customers that they are working with, and we can work jointly with customer development. And I always believe that, it's better to have, let's say, a more feature-rich but working offer rather than have a big pipeline of customers, but then have a really difficult sales process.
Correct. What's your future for the next 1 or 2 years? How does it look like? You mentioned that you will be adding more people to acquire more customers. Other than that, what's your roadmap looking like, and what's your growth looking like in the next 1 or 2 years?
Of course, we have our high hopes that we can find a number of scalable use cases that we can scale quickly across the industry, and we are looking to expand outside of the DACH region, where we primarily have customers today. We would like to expand into English-speaking countries. I'm talking about North America very cautiously still. We are exploring partner opportunities over there, but we are targeting the UK market. The Netherlands, I think the Netherlands is a great example of really the pioneers in terms of innovation in real estate. They have a lot of really great projects and a lot of good initiatives and consortiums that actually work. So we would like to have more explore more business opportunities in that region. In terms of the roadmap for the product itself, I have a few hypotheses that we want to test. And I mentioned blockchain earlier. What we are dealing with is a bunch of data sets about properties and about areas surrounding these properties. So I like to think about the market that we're in, not as prop tech anymore, honestly speaking, but more as urban tech or built world tech, because I like to include in this notion three other traditional industries. So, in addition to real estate, I like to include energy, telecom, and mobility as traditional industries into that notion, because I think buildings, like if you think about a city and each individual building being a node, yeah, containing its own low voltage IoT devices and data sets. It's basically like a mesh network of nodes, right? If you think about the city, and so if you add roads, if you add vertical transport in terms of cargo delivering drones, yeah, they're pretty soon going to be operating on a larger scale across all big cities in Europe, I'm sure. Um, and if you add telecom, yeah, with smartphones and other devices that are widely used, and then if you add mobility, yeah, in terms of parking and the cars that are driving alongside the roads, then you have the full picture of the space that we're dealing with.
Right.
And my vision is to expand built API applicability beyond buildings and add in information about people, about cars, about drones, and about markets, yeah, in general. And the reason why we want to do that is because I'm a big believer in so-called Oracle networks. Yeah, it's basically a way how you use API to connect not simply software solutions but blockchains, right? So we got a number of emerging blockchains in the real estate space, and they are also silos. In the end of the day, you need to connect them. You need to have your sources of truth about real world connected uh, to each other, so you can actually have reliable uh, computer ingestible information about the real world available as a machine object code. And
Yes.
that's our vision, is to try to go into that space, yeah, and be the be the data operator for either a metaverse or a digital twin space, whatever you want to call it, right? But it is, I believe, the future, yeah. And we want to take a active part in building, like I said in the beginning, this shared reality, yeah. And because I believe that data is knowledge, knowledge is power, and that's what we want to build, is the power for the businesses to operate in this new shared reality.
Excellent. And that with that note, it brings us to an end of a very fascinating conversation with Ivan. Ivan, your expertise and your thought leadership came through. It just is a testimony of the number of years you have spent in the industry and solved some of these deep problems. So all the best for Built API's future, and we'll keep a close look. And if everything works great, we would love to have you again in a year or two. All right.
I'll be happy to join you again, Ravi. Thanks for this opportunity. Have a